Welcome to this week's session on dark web and cryptocurrencies. The goals of this session is about defining dark web, understanding the underground world in the dark web, and comprehending marketing strategies in dark web and cryptocurrency transactions, and also investigation techniques both related with dark web as well as cryptocurrencies. Dark web, as you can see from this slide or presentation, is underneath of all types of web. Let's start with the surface web. The surface web is the web that we always know about it. It's Google, Facebook, websites, Wikipedia, and blogs, e-commerce, and YouTube that we can easily reach those websites. And deep web is the web that's actually password protected. They're usually not actually uh, reachable by Google or any other search engine as they are password protected. Dark web is the matter of this session that's usually known with uh, protecting privacy issues of individuals, as well as being a safe haven for cyber criminals. The surface web is accessible to anyone with internet connection and is hosted by browsers such as Internet Explorer, Firefox, and Google Chrome, which you can find much more of browsers anytime by searching the internet. And there were about 4 billion index web pages on the surface web, and however, many search engines do not have the capacity to access all pages. And on average, Google accesses only just 16% of the surface web, while other engines are able to access even less. So what we are reaching is just the 16%, which is much less than we can imagine. And criminals also operate on surface web, but are more vulnerable to being discovered than if they operate on the deep web or dark web. And examples of crime on the surface web include the stealing of personal information and data for financial gain. And you can name it. Many of the crimes that we know of are also related with surface web. And surface websites that operate as legitimate businesses are known to public, but they can use methods like selling counterfeit goods. And selling, for instance, a counterfeit good can have impact on the economy, on the health of individuals, that some of the products that you use can harm your, for instance, skin or health. And there are also legal implications along with other harmful impacts of counterfeit goods. Deep web is 400 to 500 times bigger than the surface web, and a lot of crimes occurs on the deep web. That includes the darknet, and deep web can impact our social life in individuals through variety of criminal means, and several criminal activities occur on the deep web, and it's very hard to track the digital footprints of criminals once they are in the darknet, which they get the chance to have an anonymization. The deep web cannot be indexed, and it's much bigger, and any website or system can be part of the deep web and requires login credentials such as username and password as part of the deep web. Organizational information and intranets of business, academic institutions, and governmental departments, and others are also part of the deep web. And these deep web sites prevent search engines from indexing parts of the websites, as I mentioned, and requires entering username and password. And the dark web is part of the deep web and also the internet. It's made up of hidden sites that you can't find through traditional web browsers. And usually, dark web relies on browsers and search engines specifically designed to unearth these hidden files so you cannot directly access to these websites using your Google Chrome or Microsoft Edge or any other browser that you have been traditionally using. And sites on the dark web use encryption software to anonymize their identity and IP address, and their visitors remain anonymous as well and hide their locations. And that's why the dark web is home to so much illegal activities that is hard for criminal justice agencies to investigate. And if you browse the dark web, you'll find a lot of illegal activities in the dark web, from stolen credit card numbers to social security numbers and related actually illicit websites with child abuse. And the dark web markets can be divided in mainly two brands, the marketplaces and the vendor shops. The marketplaces is where we understand commercial websites, and also the vendor shops are the ones that directly supervised or managed by the owner of the website. The suppliers of the dark markets having their own websites and stores, either separate or embedded within the marketplaces. And many markets status, although active, can go down or up from time to time, so you don't always see they're active. Sometimes they're not active due to the police investigation. So what's in it? What's on the dark web? That we've been talking and hearing a lot about the dark web, and we need to understand what's in it and how police actually investigate the criminal activities. The dark web has earned some of its seedy reputation, and 2016 report from researchers Daniel Moore and Thomas Reed of King's College in London researched thousands of websites, live websites on the dark web, and found that more than 50% of those websites are indeed established or developed for criminal intent. And visitors to the dark web can buy and sell drugs and produce or share counterfeit money and other people's Netflix accounts on the dark web, and their credit card numbers and more on the dark web. And there are also malicious software. Remember from the previous sessions about the malicious softwares, a criminal can find a malicious software easily on the dark web, and many dark web users, or at least those who frequently who are the frequent the top marketplace, go there to purchase illicit drug. And an average cybercrime as a service price is £35 or a little more for as a US dollar. And there are also corporate data theft, and as well as credit card fraud, corporate insider threats such as the valuable and critical data and information can be found on the dark web. And there are many emerging malwares disseminated on the dark web, and emerging fraud techniques and child sexual exploitation can also be found on the dark web. And there are a variety of almost all illicit goods you can imagine, such as social security numbers, stolen credit card numbers, full identity information, and pedophile images and videos, and even human organs are being sold on the dark web. And another opportunity for criminals to use dark web is extortion. If the cyber attack is actually uh, successful, then the criminals extort their victims for not making the information and data publicly available in return of financial gain, actually. So this is another opportunity for criminals to gain money. And dark market characteristics include buyers and vendors, and they require buyers and vendors to register by filling registration forms with their data. So this sounds like a usual way of registration, and anonymity is the primary concern of the criminals. And that if you are investigating a cybercrime, you should be very careful in not using uh, information that's belong to you. This is understandable, which can reveal the real identity of the user. So this is a serious matter for investigators. And one of the significant characteristics of the markets on the dark web is the overall trust. Vendors' trust levels depend very much on their activity in the site, and the more active a vendor is, the higher the level of the trust. And marketplaces provide the chance to buyers to evaluate the vendors with their feedback. So this is not quite different from a usual or traditional website. So we might be seeking some more mysterious behaviors, but usually the business behaviors, whether it's an organized crime group, whether it's a cyber organized crime group, the behaviors are very similar. And marketplaces provide the chance to buyers to evaluate the vendors with their feedback. So people can enter their reviews, and also there's an opportunity for star rating or other similar reputation systems that we've been traditionally using along the years on the internet in regards to commercial uh, trade. And the more natural and negative the feedback, the lower level of trust is actually developed for the market. So reviews are and feedbacks are quite important on the dark web. And for markets which are focusing on vendors' reputation or are relatively new, they present vendor ratings also from other dark markets. So that's another important matter in understanding the vendors' trust on the dark market. And there's usually sudden exits or shifts of some markets from the dark web. So when you research dark markets or dark web, you'll see that some websites exist and they can go away very easily. This usually takes place when after a sufficiently large amount of money in cryptocurrencies are shifted or to these marketplaces. So once they have large enough money, and they close the site in order to block outgoing transfers and make off with the money, and they have locked into uh, with the money they have locked into. So that this is an opportunity for themselves for the dark web. They earn or they actually store enough of cryptocurrencies and then they just go away. And for instance, nucleus markets all of a sudden disappeared in 2016, and the sheep marketplace and real deal market became also suddenly unreachable in 2016 when their owners and admins vanished after absconding millions of dollars. So be aware that, or let the people in your environment know that there could be sudden exits. There could be no trust in the dark web as you do not know the person and the person is not reachable. But usually people who have criminal intents usually try to access these websites. So they are also involved in crime and they're not trustable. So this is a kind of a way that the dark web actually process things, but there needs to be some level of trust, obviously, but there's an obvious uh, thing that can occur that the criminals can suddenly exit from the market and leave away everything behind except for the cryptocurrencies. And how can an individual access to dark web? There's a web browser specifically designed to reach out or access to the dark web, and Tor requires high-speed internet as well as VPN for your security. Obviously, a virtual private network gives you online privacy and anonymity by creating a private network from a public internet connection. So VPNs are usually known by users when you purchase an antivirus program. Usually it's bundled. If you little bit pay more, you'll have your own VPN to protect your IP address. VPN basically masks your internet protocol address, so your online actions are virtually untraceable. VPN services establish secure and encrypted connections to provide greater privacy than even a secure Wi-Fi hotspot. And VPN also creates a data tunnel between your local network and exit node in another location. So you are accessing to the internet privately through your through the VPN or channel that's provided with the VPN. What does a VPN hide? Your browsing history, your IP address and location, and your location for streaming, your devices, and your web activity. So it actually hides a lot of information that's out there when you directly access to the internet. Indeed, VPN is very useful to protect you, not in terms of just using Tor to access to the dark web, but in a traditional way, you should have your own VPN to protect your privacy and to protect yourself from hackers and criminals. There are tools like Tor, or as I mentioned, originally an acronym for the Onion router, and there are also other browsers like Freenet and I2P to have you access encrypted communication. The I2P network provides strong privacy protections for communication over the internet, and also you can use other softwares to access to the dark web. So when you use a VPN as well as the Tor web browser, you are more secure to do an investigation. And Tails is a non-profit organization. This is another tool to access the dark web. It's a portable operating system that protects that protects against the surveillance and censorship, and it helps your system avoids from surveillance, censorship, as well as advertising, unnecessary advertising and viruses. So Tails uses the Tor network to protect your privacy online, help you avoid censorship, and you can enjoy the internet like it should be. And Tails always starts from the same clean state, and everything you do disappears automatically when you shut down Tails. So this is an important advantage for users to safely browse the internet. And when you boot your computer from a USB flash drive, then there's no virus. It just starts at the starting from the starting point. No information held in the system from the previous session. So this is another advantage for users as well as the uh, law enforcement to investigate cybercrime on the dark web. And Honix is another opportunity to investigate cybercrime. This is actually not just for actually law enforcement, and criminals also take advantage of this actually operating system. It is the only operating system designed to be run inside a virtual machine and paired with Tor. Onyx is a software designed to preserve privacy and anonymity by helping its users run applications anonymously, and can be installed on macOS, Linux, and obviously Windows. It's a heavily reconfigured form of Linux Debian that runs inside multiple virtual machines, and it also provides a substantial layer of protection from malware and IP address leaks. IP address leaks are important even if you think that you, for instance, directly access to the internet through Tor browser, which is supposed to be encrypted. There's always a configuration mistake, and there can be actually vulnerabilities on the Tor browser where your IP address can leak through the tunnels, but this actually operating system is more of a chance for people to hide their identity, and it is the only operating system designed to be run inside a virtual machine and paired with Tor. So this is another advantage while you are using your Windows operating system or any other operating system. You can open another window through through this operating system, and obviously through a virtual machine, and you can access to the internet in a more secure way. Normally, hiding IP addresses is technically difficult for softwares, and there's always a risk of so-called IP leaks, as I mentioned, whereby a user mistakenly thinks the IP address is hidden when that it's actually not. And believe me, many of the criminals are arrested believing that their IP is anonymous, but yet they're not anonymous, and police find those vulnerabilities and access those criminals and arrest them. And Onyx actually claims that it prevents IP leaks because it uses a more solid technical design, and IP leak issues that previously applied to other software were not applicable to Unix in a number of case, and it protects you in case the viruses are able to bypass Tor browser security. So you should not trust the Tor browser 100%. There's always vulnerabilities on the Tor browser. It's like your operating system has a lot of vulnerabilities, and the Tor browser, it's developing itself, updating itself, and fixing the problems, but there still might be some more problems with the Tor browser. And Unix is a complete operating system that can be installed on top of your existing operating system. And a web browser, IRC client, Office suite, and more pre-configured with security in mind. And you can also see the comparison of Unix and Tor browser on the web. And Tails is a live operating system with operational persistence that can be installed on external drives such as DVD or USB. And Unix can be installed inside your operating system. So this is the biggest difference, which might be running on internal or external drives. And Unix has an optional VM live mode, so this is a great opportunity for people to directly use both operating system synchronously. Tor is actually developed was actually developed in 1990s. Tor became the most famous tool in terms of anonymity and privacy to access and publish material on the dark web. And the idea was to route the traffic through multiple servers and encrypt each step of the way. So using multiple servers, you're making the Tor actually makes things more complex. Within that complexity, encryption provides more anonymity between different nodes in the network. Its code was released under a free and open software license, so it's reachable. By the end of 2003, the network had about a dozen volunteer nodes, mostly in the US, plus one in Germany, and in the dark web and Tor. The problem is there's no justice system. As it's an anonymous, as it's a system that provides anonymity. And this could be like a dream for some people, that you could see what would happen if there's no justice system. And organization that it's an organization that operates or supposed to prevent wrongdoing. And and the actually Tor is named as the onion router because of the architecture of communication of it, and it was quickly coined with the shorter Tor with its name coming from the application layer encryption. And the layers of encryption resembles to an onion. That's why it's called the onion router, and helps the users to reach the dark web. Tor actually, the browser and the network handle the web traffic by bouncing the communications through a chain of the three randomly chosen computers from all over the world called relays. So this makes things more complicated. There's a jurisdiction issue, there's an encryption issue, and there are many other things for law enforcement agencies to deal with it. And Tor project is a non-profit project that comes from 2016, but the idea of onion routing began in the mid 1990s. So the goal of this onion routing was to have a way to use the internet with as much privacy as possible. And the idea was to route the traffic through multiple servers Again, there's not just one server and client relationship. There are multiple servers that the uh, Tor browser helps access and encrypt it each step of the way. Onion services allow users to operate a website, chat service, file sharing site, or video calling. And it also provides a platform without exposing the IP address of individuals. And this feature also lets users to run Onion services from behind firewalls. So this is another advantage for criminals to have the advantage of anonymity. You can find a lot of dark web websites by searching on the dark web, but there's always a risk on the dark web, and there are a lot of scammers, and no one can tell you who are the real scammers and who are not. And so you should take an action based on your research and risk. And the following link shows some of which are scammers, so be aware of the risks when you are browsing the dark web. And Tor actually browsers isolates each website you visit, so third-party trackers and ads can't follow you. Any cookies automatically clear when you are done browsing. So will your browsing history too, and it's helpful against surveillance. Tor browser prevents someone watching your connection from knowing what websites you visit, and anyone monitoring your browsing habits can see is that you are using Tor. So basically, sometimes you cannot reach some websites because the server understands that you're using Tor and not allow you to browse its content. And Tor also provides multi-layer encryption. Your traffic is relayed and encrypted 3 times as it passes over the Tor network. The network is comprised of thousands of volunteer-run servers known as Tor relays. And Tor also resists fingerprinting. Tor browser aims to make all users look the same, making it difficult for you to be fingerprinted based on your browser and device information. So what this means is that fingerprinting, the server that you're accessing actually not only collects the IP address of the users, but also the screen size, the browser information, and related device information from your computer, which helps uh, identify the user's computer, and they probably leads to the user in an actual way. And the onion top level domain is specifically used to access hidden services hosted only on the Tor network. It's not part of the internet DNS route, so as it's not part of the internet DNS, it's not accessible directly without Tor user. The onion sites uh, do not have the formatting used in the clearnet, such as www.example.com. And Tor's anonymity is based on relays. Random computers, also referred to as routers or nodes, between which communication is bounced actually to obfuscate the route through which communication is performed. So this sounds like a complex explanation, but basically the user once entered to the Tor network, his or her data is totally encrypted and actually hops onto other relays or nodes on the network and access to the destination when access is provided for the destination, it's not encrypted. If attackers have control over enough nodes within the Tor network, then they can see both the entry node, point node and the exit node. So they will be able to detect the source of the request and don't need to know what happens in between. So this brings an idea that the law enforcement agencies can play a part in actually uh, adding their nodes in the Tor network. That can also bring advantage to actually access the content and IP address of the users. They then modify the headers of the packets, and each packet, remember from the OSI lecture, there are headers and packets in the network that's sent through your computer. It's a communication channel, and packets are traveling from one computer to another node to another computer. Then the packets have headers to inform the system how to reach to the targeted address. And the actually attackers can modify the headers of the packets in the entry nodes, and if they find those packets on the exit nodes, they control they will be able to connect the packets to someone. So they're basically playing with the packets. They can see the entry node. They get the entry node and inject their code into the header of the packets, and then once in the exit node, they check what kind of a pack or from which IP address that packet is coming, and then validate the information. These types of attacks are called traffic confirmation attacks. Traffic confirmation attacks. And one of the most notorious dark markets on the darknet was Silk Road, which was like a black market. It was like an eBay that was selling illicit drug. Not obviously eBay is selling illicit drugs, but this is the opportunity for dark market to sell illicit drugs as they are feeling anonymous. And they can also sell various illicit drugs and goods and services. And there are also potential buyers who could read reviews on the products, the shipping, and the seller's reputation, and more are like same in the traditional business world. But the FBI actually raided in 2013 and shut down the website, and FBI arrested the administrator of the website and charged the pseudonymous founder, Red Pirate Roberts, and he was arrested. And how else you can access to the dark web or surf on the dark web? Through search engines, you can use DuckDuckGo. This browser doesn't collect history or user activity. Many people also use this search engine to access dark web or find some information on the dark web. And there's another Tor search engine. It's called Torch, and you can also use this search engine, but from time to time it's active and inactive, so you might not be able to find it currently. But you can also find a lot of websites as a search engine on the dark web, and there's another search engine, and you can find this search engine by just checking the address on the bottom of this page. But as I mentioned, this may not always be active, and as the criminal justice agencies and law enforcement have been actually dealing with such criminals, and the search engines that leads to find activities for criminals, they are actually investigated by law enforcement and actually stopped by the law enforcement. And not evil is another search engine. If you cannot happily use or comfortably use those search engines, you can use the hidden wiki. It's a popular way to search the darknets. It acts as a search engine for illicit goods, products, and services. The hidden wiki, just like traditional wikis, can be edited by anyone. This means that criminals can anonymously post links to their black markets pages, and anyone on the darknet can access them. So this is another way that criminals uh, bring their information on certain actually classifications, which easier for people to access to the hidden wiki. And hidden wiki can be edited by the users, and there are news media and other organizations that play a part in the dark web, that you can find information about uh, activities, usual activities, or political activities on the internet, or on the politics of the US or international politics, or fraud related information by using such websites. So another opportunity to surf the or use the internet with the ID protection is uh, script mail, and I think this is not currently active, or it's being removed by, but there are many similar mail programs or servers that are freely available, and you can see the list of these actually mail servers. Some of them charge and some of them do not charge, but they readily provide anonymity in terms of your personally identifiable information. And Tormail was a free anonymous email service provider, but it was actually was raided by the FBI. The servers were allowing its users to receive and send email anonymously to email addresses inside and outside the Tor network. So this was also bringing an opportunity for criminals to anonymously send their emails. And there's a crypto dog or similar websites you can find that provides private chat server, and especially organized criminals can utilize such chat programs to communicate between each other, which makes the job of police agencies harder. There are also many forum sites on the dark web. For example, anonymous forum, Pedo support community, Lazy2, 8chan, and Hidden Chain. And there are many others that helps the dark web community to interact with other and exchange information, and also help deliver illicit goods. And there's also websites like WikiLeaks, and there could be a lot of information about the intelligence-related information on the dark web. And cryptocurrencies have been used in the dark web very frequently. You can see a list of cryptocurrencies, and these are the popular list of cryptocurrencies that's been used on the dark web. And in the future, there'll be new, completely decentralized marketplaces that rely on cryptocurrencies or blockchain technology. So this is the first years or decades of dark web, and in the future, we may see more powerful dark markets on the dark web. And this technology will apparently be used to guarantee trust between users, between buyers and sellers, and to ensure safe transactions. Many of these dark markets sell legitimate goods or services, and the illegal part is usually for a lack of taxation on the sale of goods or a lack of documentation as vendors and other bureaucratic reasons. The original goal of dark web markets was to provide free marketplaces without censorship where prices are fair. And for example, Open Bazaar was a project, an open source project like Bitcoin. It aimed to create a decentralized peer-to-peer trading network using BTC and without obviously additional charges or restrictions of any type. And the power in an exchange between buyers and sellers will no longer reside in a centralized service that communicates them. So what we are really understanding from all of these is that uh, another sort of industry is being or has been created on the dark web where government is not an issue, government is not a regulator, and many try to enjoy the freedom from the government regulations through anonymity. It is the users themselves who connect directly without the requirement of any third party, and you can see a lot of examples of these markets. And in a traditional market, merchant who is offering, you see the merchant who is offering their products, company and intermediary platform between all of them and customers. And we are talking about businesses like Amazon, eBay, AliExpress, or any other commercial or merchant websites. And we know how the things happening on the traditional market. But on the open market, only three elements are required, and a moderator that we will talk about in detail when explaining how it works. But seller, it doesn't depend on any other service to sell its products. So it's just an independent service without any taxation. He creates and maintains his trade. Buyer reads the seller's product using Open Bazaar, and payment method in this case is decentralized and without having to provide personal information to any centralized identity. Wall Street market is another example of dark markets. It's an escrow and multi-sig trusted type of market making use of bitcoins. It's considered as one of the most good-looking, innovative, and modern marketplaces for physical and digital goods. With relatively few vendors, most of its goods and services listings consisting of drugs, fraud, and guides. So this is a more successful way of representation for criminals of their market. So you could also find or research more dark markets on the dark web using the Tor and other search engines. And law enforcement also play an important role in investigating cybercrimes. And uh, like criminals, law enforcement can also take advantage of dark web, and they use different techniques and tools for each environment that include monitoring they can monitor these servers, use surveillance, and they can do they can disrupt these services, investigate crimes, and provide enforcement in data intelligence processing and analysis for crime prevention. Can also be provided investigation and prosecution purposes. uh, Acts can be followed by the law enforcement agencies. So law enforcement agencies have a lot of options. So don't think that the dark web is totally anonymous, and law enforcement personnel also play their role on the dark web. Obviously, they're also hiding their identity. So this is a great challenge for criminals. Without knowing who you are dealing with, you may end up being in a jail. And criminals follow business strategies and patterns like the traditional businesses. And for law enforcement agencies, keeping record of the history of online profiles, although anonymous, gives the opportunity to track and categorize and profile customer behaviors, possibly related to cybercrime activities and money flow related financial transactions. So basically, law enforcement agencies profile the criminals, and with profiling they can reach more information and understand the modus operandi of the criminal networks, and try to see where the money flows from one node to another node, and reach or access to the criminals IP information. And there are other methods that law enforcement can use: misinformation, which can lead the criminals or the buyers of such illegal goods can be or may be accessing to a user on the dark web that might indeed be an undercover agent. So there could be fake news on the dark web that the law enforcement can lead those users to believe in such routes to follow. And the use of crypto could be leveraged, coordinating operations and stimulating a collaborative sharing culture. And there was a workshop in regards to dark web, which was held as part of the European research project in 2017, held in Netherlands. There were three main investigation phases according to the attendees of the workshop: the strategic investigation, it's the intrinsic characteristics of the technology and the environment of the dark markets, or on organizational and governance aspects of the broader ecosystem where law enforcement needs to operate. And the second phase is the identification of suspects, surveillance of suspects to research criminals' identity and responsibility in the crime. And it's actually like a business as usual. Police or law enforcement agencies always needs to identify the suspects. If a criminal investigation leads to a geographical area, for example, when a server hosting dark market service is located, a local operation is typically set up by the law enforcement agencies. And then the next step is the prosecution of the criminals or suspects. Once an investigation successfully leads to an arrest, and if there's a sufficiently solid proof of or evidence need to be or provided, then the case are brought to the court, obviously. And we all know that the cryptocurrency is quite an important tool for criminals to provide their criminal transactions or perform their criminal transactions. And criminals buy or sell dark web markets and uh, uh, goods using the cryptocurrencies, and criminals needs to also understand a little bit of how to use cryptocurrency. And one of the way for criminals is to obviously obfuscate the origin of the cryptocurrency in a cryptocurrency wallet and the identity location of the receiver. So in the first place, they should or they try to hide their identity to protect or to obfuscate the origin of the cryptocurrency. And there are a few number of secure transaction methods in dark web. The first one is finalized early. It's like a vendor requires receipt of payment before dispatching the purchased good. So this is quite a risky way of buying a good. The risk is on the buyer's side indeed, and it expedites the transaction due to little or no risk on the vendor's side. And there's also escrow services on the dark web. Dark web markets will generate a Bitcoin address to which the buyer transfers the payment. So the buyer transfers the payment to a Bitcoin address. The market holds the buyer's money and pays the vendor only after the buyer marks the order as complete. So the money is on the escrow service, and after the completion of the delivery of the good or service, the escrow service allow the seller to receive the cryptocurrency or Bitcoin. It's a moderately secured system of transaction for criminals. And the other method is multiple signature escrow. It's also called multi-sig. This payment method generates multiple keys for the Bitcoin transaction and payment release process. And this refers to requiring multiple keys to authorize Bitcoin transaction rather than just a single signature from one key. It has a number of applications, such as dividing up the responsibility for possession of bitcoins among multiple people. And it also helps avoid a single point of failure, where making it substantially more difficult for the wallet to be compromised. After receiving the goods, the buyer signs off on the transaction using his or her key, and then the market uses their key and releases the funds to the vendor. So this is a more secure way of transaction in the dark web. So that's how they provide the trust or have the trust in the dark web. If there are any issues such as lack of communication, or if the buyer doesn't approve receival of goods, the market can mediate the transaction and use its key, which is highly secure. And there are other types of markets in the dark web which require an invite code or referral link in order for users to register and start their trading and transactions. An affiliate program giving commission to users who have referred new users to the site through their respective referral links are also a way of inviting the new users. And there are market cases where different vendors apply different payment methods within a marketplace, such as payments arranged by buyers and sellers after they come in contact with each other without the market's intervention and involvement to their transaction. So this is another opportunity. So there are examples like Wall Street market, Dream market, and other invite markets that utilized the centralized markets intervention and involvement in their transactions. And in December 2014, the FBI received a tip from a foreign law enforcement agency that a Tor hidden service site called Playpen was hosting child pornography. The tip would ultimately lead to the largest known hacking operation in U.S. law enforcement history until 2014. The tip the FBI received pointed out that Playpen was indeed misconfigured. So that's how the law enforcement agencies investigate or access to the IP address of criminal servers. So its actual IP address was indeed publicly available and appeared to resolve to a location in the United States. The FBI obtained a search warrant and seized the server hosting the site, but the FBI didn't just shut it down. Instead, the FBI operated the site for nearly 2 weeks, allowing thousands of images of child pornography to be downloaded, according to some resources. And that decision alone had spurred serious debate and discussion in the public. And blockchain are used for secure transactions, and blockchain is a public ledger in which all virtual transactions are indexed and recorded. And hackers can create orphan blocks through which they can attempt to take complete control of the blockchain ledger by manipulating the blocks in the ledger. And this is called the 51% attack. And there are still many websites, fraudulent websites that collect Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies and get away with it. And there are two main transaction methods: buying Bitcoin from a confirmed vendor or Bitcoin mining. That's how people make money out of Bitcoins. And Bitcoin mining confirms transaction in a trustful manner when enough computational power or effort is created to block and creates new Bitcoins in each block. So Bitcoin mining is a different sort of way to gain money, and it's the process of adding transaction records to Bitcoin's public ledger of past transactions or blockchain. I'm going to explain it more. This ledger of past transactions is called the blockchain, as it's a chain of blocks. And the blockchain serves to confirm transactions to the rest of the network as having taken place. So the purpose of blockchain is to confirm all the transactions all across the globe to the rest of the network as having taken place. So basically, a new transaction occurs, and the transaction then transmitted to a network of computers, which are peer-to-peer computers scattered around the globe. And the network computers then solves equations to confirm the validity of transaction. So the validity of transaction is bound to some sort of an algorithm problem solving, which makes the transaction complete. And then these blocks are then changed chained together, creating a long history of all transactions that are permanent. Once they're confirmed to be legitimate transactions, they are clustered around the blocks. So that's how this works. After the confirmation, they are clustered around the blocks. So this is how blockchain transaction processes. And Bitcoin runs on a decentralized computer network, or let's say distributed ledger that tracks transactions in the cryptocurrency. When computers on the network verify and process transactions, new Bitcoins are created or mined. So you might be wondering how Bitcoin is being produced. Like one person wrote an algorithm and published it, and then it turns out to be one of the most widely used digital currency in the world, and it's spreading and gaining value. So this is how the Bitcoin mining helps to proliferate new, actually new um, near bitcoins. These network computers or miners process the transaction in exchange of or for a payment in Bitcoin. Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency is always at risk from scams or frauds. Bitcoin mining hardware fraud also happens. Scammers pose as legitimate hardware manufacturers. So a person might be willing to purchase a hardware to produce bitcoins, but it may turn out to be a fraud, and you may end up losing tens of thousands of dollars. And scammers pose as legitimate hardware manufacturers specializing in Bitcoin mining hardware and collect money from people to develop or advance new mining systems in the hands of the users, and naturally they're never returning on investment and vanishing with the money. Bitcoin is still in its early states. Its pseudonymous creator Satoshi Nakamoto is not really identified. The identity of the person or persons who created the technology is still mystery. There are claims about some professors or mathematicians, but they're not acknowledging that they produced Bitcoin. And Bitcoin uses cryptography to keep its transactions secure. So you need to understand at least basics of cryptography to investigate Bitcoin and how the information is encapsulated in Bitcoin. Bitcoin is actually used in virtually in all darknet markets in the dark web. So it's the most widely used cryptocurrency in traditional markets in terms of cryptocurrency, but it's also heavily used in the dark market. Besides Bitcoin, there are other types of cryptocurrencies such as Ethereum, which is a technology that's home to digital money, and you don't need to provide all your personal details to use this cryptocurrency, and this lets you send cryptocurrency to anyone for a small fee, and both let you use both cryptocurrencies let you use digital money without payment providers or banks. But Ethereum is also programmable, so you can also use it for lots of different digital assets, even just for the Bitcoin, and it was launched in 2015. Ethereum was intended to be used by the corporate world. Its purpose is to provide businesses with the platform they need to build their services and products. The list of companies, including Microsoft, Intel, JP Morgan, and Cisco, is constantly increasing, most of them becoming members of the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance, and it was established in February 2017, seeking to use blockchain technology to run smart contracts at Fortune 500 companies. And the next one is the Litecoin, which was released in 2011 by Charlie Lee, a former engineer of Google. It was intended to be the silver to the Bitcoin's gold, and according to its founder's vision to act as it acts as complementary rather than competitive to Bitcoin. It's considered as the younger brother of Bitcoin, although the number of available Litecoins is 84 million comparatively to the availability of 21 million Bitcoins. And since the start of the 2017, Litecoin has risen more than 7,000 percent against the Bitcoin, which is about 1731 percent. Cryptocurrencies act as a safe haven and for the efficiency of crypto markets, and they have substantially improved in the last few years. So this brings another leverage in terms of the traditional forms of using cryptocurrencies, as well as they are being used in the dark markets. The U.S. Commodity Futures Trading Commission considers them as commodities, and IRS considers it as properties. And while the Securities Exchange Commission failed to recognize them as securities, despite stressing the need for better market surveillance and custody for cryptocurrencies, and they still failed to recognize them as securities. And in Canada, the authorities at the federal level treat cryptocurrencies as securities, while in Japan and Australia as legal properties. And cryptocurrencies actually have been heavily used in money laundering. Money laundering, as you all know, is a global issue which is usually associated with organized crime and tax fraud. It comprises three stages: placement, layering, and integration. As compliance efforts focus mainly on the financial sector, many compliance officers believe that money launderers are retreating to less regulated sectors such as the cryptocurrency. So in a given financial sector, it's not that easy, but cryptocurrencies provide more opportunities for money laundering. And compliance experts argue that cryptocurrencies are extremely high risk of being used to launder money and finance terrorism. So cryptocurrencies are indeed threat to society by providing support terrorist activities and organized crime. So the impact of cryptocurrency can be very detrimental for the society and people. Money laundering was first declared as an illegal activity in 1986 to attempt to deal with the raging drug war in the United States. So money laundering still remains a global security issue, and incriminated funds frequently originate from actually organized crime, arms trafficking, prostitution, tax evasion, and other similar offenses. In terms of money laundering in the cyberspace, the money launderer needs to download a wallet, which is a software tool allowing users to send, receive, and store funds in the cryptocurrencies network. Alternatively, they can purchase cryptocurrencies in person. The launderer needs to find a crypto ATM and retailer or bank with exchange cash deposit into the cryptocurrency. A third option would be is to acquire a free cryptocurrency by playing online games or doing online jobs or blogging about cryptocurrencies. And the funds may be layered after acquiring the uh, cryptocurrencies. And during this layering process, incriminated bitcoins are transferred back and forth between different addresses. And to transfer the coins, so-called mixers or tumblers are used. So we need to understand a little more about the Bitcoin. Bitcoin remains the most important cryptocurrency. Its advantages include lower transaction fees compared to the traditional banking system. It brings decentralization for the transaction, which makes it practically immune to hacking. And since the invention of Bitcoin, multiple other cryptocurrencies have been launched, which are also referred as altcoins, and there's no central entity or server to govern it. So the idea behind Bitcoin is much like is much like the foundation idea of the internet, which is decentralized, and internet seemingly deserves a decentralized system of financial transaction. And this system also help avoid double spending in a decentralized system. So all peers must have access to a complete list of all transactions. And for the system to function, every peer must agree to the protocoling. So there's an agreement rather than an authority, there's an agreement on this system. And this prompts to the question of how agreement can be reached without a central entity, but by finding a solution. Bitcoin's inventor revolutionized the market. And I think since the RSA cryptography, this is one of the biggest inventions in the on the internet world. Every single Bitcoin transaction is documented irrevocably in the blockchain once it's been confirmed. Blockchain's power is all on the decentralization of cryptocurrencies. And new Bitcoins, remember, are created by miners. And cryptocurrencies use countless individual computers, so-called nodes, to process these transactions, and every node represents a blockchain conjunction. And nodes connect to a certain cryptocurrency through open source software or via download. Bitcoin algorithm makes use of SHA 256 algorithm, which is generally considered one of the most complex algorithms, while at the same time it allows a greater degree of parallel processing. So this allows more flexibility in calculations of more complex algorithms. The most dominant Bitcoin mining methods consist of the use of application specific integrated circuits. What it means is that it's a circuit which is an integrated circuit chip customized for particular use rather than intended for general use. So the application uh, integrated circuit aligns with the calculations of all these mining activities along with the cryptocurrency system. And these are hardware systems which, unlike the simple CPUs or GPUs, can be tailor-made for the sole purpose of mining bitcoins. The consequence of this innovation has made Bitcoin mining increasingly out of the reach for regular or everyday users. It's becoming more expensive with the advanced technology that provides more advantage in such algorithms and calculations. Cryptographic hash functions are central to blockchain technology, and they're used to chain link blocks. And the hash function has important features that help it maintain the security of the blockchain. And hash functions are one-way or asymmetric, and they compress any input or message of any length into an output of predetermined length or hash value. And what this means that from the structure and content of the data, actually blockchain utilizes the hash functions to confirm the validity of the information. So when a hash function is produced from the same data or blockchain data, let's say, it always produces the same hash value. This is actually makes more sense. And the hash value of an input is easy to calculate, but it's not practical to decipher the input from the hash value. The output is also called as digest. Hashing is basically the process of using a mathematical model or algorithm against the data to produce a numeric value that's representative of the data. This numeric value needs to be a unique value, basically a summary of data from a given output. So, but the summary only gives a unique number. Whenever you use the same algorithm to calculate the hash value, you will receive the same value, which gives an information about the validity of the data, that the data is not actually infiltrated or compromised. Hashing is the process of transforming any given key or a string of characters into another value. This is usually represented by a shorter fixed length value or key that represents the and makes it easier to find or employ the original string. So from the hash value, you can do a search to find the file without actually trying to use every bit of characters to find that file. The values returned by a hash function are called hash values, and hash codes or digests or simply hashes. And hash values are used to identify and filter duplicate file, and hash values cannot be reversed. So if a file brings you a specific hash value, and if there's exactly bit by bit another file that has same values, features, then their hash value will be the same, and you can basically clearly understand if the files are identical or not. And as I mentioned, hash values cannot be reversed. In computer forensics, this is useful in a number of ways. First, you can prove that a file or a drive has not changed by hashing it and then checking a previous hash to ensure they are the same. So you can simply understand to see the file if compromised or not, or if there's any change on the file, you'll basically and easily you'll be able to see the different values if things changed. And second, you can use a hash to detect if you have a particular file on your computer or in a set of evidence. And this is very useful in detecting the presence of illegal materials such as child pornography. And the police can send that list to any investigator to check if illegal images form part of a case with no risk that anyone can recreate the original image from the hash values. So hash values are not only important in terms of investigating cryptocurrencies and identity of transactions, but also very useful in other forms of cybercrime investigations. And you can download Bitcoin from the bitcoin.org and install Bitcoin Core to the default locations. And this is fine up to actually 170 gigabyte on the disk is sufficient. And remember to start Bitcoin Core from the shortcut each time. So you need to use the shortcut, start Bitcoin Core, and allow a couple of days for the blockchain to download. So your system needs to download the whole blockchain, and you can stop and start it as you wish, and it will carry on from where you stopped. So you might be wondering, downloading the whole blockchain can or may take up more resources, but it's not necessarily true. The data produced by Bitcoin are not very large, are not large. And you can also use Bitcoin for your tests. You can locate the start menu, Bitcoin core group, and then the green shortcut. Click the green shortcut to start. Fully working Bitcoin environment. This is a very fully working Bitcoin environment, but the Bitcoins are free. That's the good part, and you can send them around and analyze the results exactly as if you were on the actual live Bitcoin environment to practice. And you can locate the start menu, Bitcoin core group, and the green shortcut to start the testnet version. And again, you can edit this shortcut with data there if you wish to change where the blockchain will be stored. So if you want to change the directory, you can use data dir function to change the directory that you install. And there are some popular hash algorithms. MD5, SH1 used to be popular, and SH2 includes SH256 and SH512 are novel hash functions computed with 832 bits and 64 bits words. And there are also many other hash algorithms as well. And in hashing, passwords are stored in a database as hashes rather than the raw password. So you might be thinking that's my password in a database and it can be seen by the database administrator, but that's not true. When you type in your password, it's hashed and compared with the hash in the database. When the database is hacked, the hacker only gets away with the mathematically irreversible hashes. So what they're seeing is just a cryptographic function, but the system administrator never actually sees the original password, so he or she can go rogue and use it to log into your super secret account. And English dictionary file of common words and passwords can be used to crack the hashing algorithms, but it's not that easy. If the hashing or the password is very long, it's not that easy to crack the password. And you can try this website XORBin to practice hashing. You can just simply enter a string or text and click the data button, and then you'll see the same result. Whenever you write the same string, you'll get the same result at the same length. And why is this relevant to hashing within a cryptography? In many of the checks and balances carried out within a transaction or indeed on the blockchain itself are based on SHA-256 hashing. Hashing details of a computer-based transaction between two parties, and this would likely include the following information. For instance, you might be seeing a lot of information here, and this is just 103 characters, and the hashing result produces a 256 bits hash value, and it's a 32 bytes, and out of these information you are producing these results, and it's not possible to brute force with a dictionary because this is a very lengthy uh, uh, switching that will probably prevent brute force attacks, and it will take up to several years to figure out, as these are not related with the information on the dictionary. Every transaction is hashed and the digest is signed to ensure that no changes have been made since it was created by the sender. So if you arrest someone with a Bitcoin and he claims that, oh, this is not my Bitcoin, that I wasn't involved in that cyber attack, and you end up saying that, yeah, the Bitcoin address overlaps with yours, and this sounds like the file, the transaction file related with hashing overlaps with yours, and uh, you can basically put that person in a situation where he cannot deny the responsibility of his criminal activities. And blocks of transactions are also hashed to make sure no changes have been made to its list of transactions. So this system also assures the transactions are hashed to make sure no changes have been made. And cryptography is also another part of the blockchain and cryptocurrency technology. The Caesar cipher is one of the earliest known and simplest ciphers for you to understand how basically cryptography works. And it's a type of substitution cipher in which each letter in the plain text is shifted a certain number of places down the alphabet. So, for example, with a shift of one, A will be replaced by B, B will become C, and so on and so forth. The method is named after Julius Caesar, who apparently used it to communicate with his generals. So here you see plain text here, defend the east wall of the castle, and then when we convert it to a ciphertext, it turns to a different text and a little harder to understand. But there's obviously more advanced features that the cryptography uses, and you can read more about the cryptography from the website link below. And here you can see an example from here. The plain text is attack at dawn, and the cipher text, when you shift each letter from just 5 letter down the alphabet, then you can have this string. But if you write this ciphertext here, you'll get the same plain text here, trying to decrypt the information. And when you see this symmetric cryptography information, this is a very much a traditional way of cryptography, and it's a cryptographic algorithm that uses the same secret key for its operation, and if applicable for reversing the effects of the operation. So what this tells us that it basically is cipher or scramble the string or information in the data block, and after ciphering all these information, you need to have a key to actually cipher the information, and then you need to have a key, the same key to decipher the information. So this is the original data and ciphered by a key, and then you see the encrypted information here. But on the second step, this information is decrypted through the same key to reveal the original form of the data. So symmetric key ciphers are valuable because it's relatively inexpensive to produce a strong key for these ciphers, and these keys tend to be much smaller for the level of protection they afford. The algorithms are relatively inexpensive to process, and the key must be kept secret all the time for each participant, and consequently these keys are always referred to as secret key ciphers. So this is the most basic form of cryptography, which you can easily understand. If anyone else finds the key, it affects both confidentiality and authentication. Just recall the cybersecurity session from the previous classes, and it resonates with the current lecture. A person with an unauthorized symmetric key not only can decrypt messages sent with that key, but can also encrypt new messages and send them as if they actually come from one of the two parties who were actually using the key. And the major drawback to secret key cipher is in exchanging the secret key, because exchange must retain the privacy of the key. So the key to understanding this symmetric cryptography is that there needs to be a key to cipher and decipher, and both parties or multiple parties need to know the password or the ID to decrypt the symmetric cryptography. And because of all these insufficiencies, asymmetric cryptographic system, which is also called as public key cryptography, was established and actually before the mid 1970s, all cipher systems used symmetric key algorithms in which the same cryptographic key is used with the underlying algorithm by both the sender and the recipient. And this is very normal. The first thing that comes into your mind is to lock a mailbox, right, with a key. And this is a simple assertion. It's an asymmetric encryption technique which actually uses different keys for encryption and decryption. So this brings another level, very advanced level to the cryptography. And it allows computers over the internet to securely communicate with each other without sharing their secret key. And the public key only functions with its corresponding private key. So you have a public key which is reachable by both parties, and but the private key only be used by the party that's supposed to decrypt the encrypted information. And Bitcoin addresses are generated indeed from the public key through a few steps that involve cryptographic hashes. So remember that public keys can only be decrypted with the private key. And elliptic curve digital signature algorithm is used for generating public and private key pairs in Bitcoin, and they are to identify which network the address is intended for. A network identifier is also added to the front of the address, which is very important. For instance, in this case, we simply add 00, which identifies the main network to the beginning of the key. Okay, so this helps you identify the network address from the Bitcoin. And then next, a checksum is calculated. Checksums are used to ensure that the address has a valid set of characters, and that is if one of the characters are mistypes, if there's a typo or error, the checksum digit will be invalid. And thus, Bitcoin wallets can use the checksum to make sure you didn't enter a bogus Bitcoin address. So this is an important to verify the rules. And in the previous example, the checksum is calculated as D6196-7F6 and appended to the end of the string, which you can easily see here. And police track certain cryptocurrency wallets or cryptocurrency addresses. In the previous example, we've seen the addressing scheme of the Bitcoin, which can lead to a suspect behind the transaction. New advances in digital technology are also allowing investigators to visualize transactions, to follow virtual money trails, and reveal evidence about individuals who commit crimes. And the key to solving crypto crimes is tracking the address to the wallet, then the wallet to the user. And if police find the users, they can find the cash, obviously. And unfortunately, this is not actually very easy. First, the police will have to track the cryptocurrency address to a wallet, and then recording the cryptocurrency address provided by the victim is critical in solving these cases. Once the victim sends the money, the officer must act very quickly. Most sophisticated criminals will often set up dynamic cryptocurrency addresses to obfuscate cryptocurrency. So what the criminals are trying to do is to obfuscate the address so quickly and change it and make the cryptocurrency untraceable, and meaning different one-time use addresses are given per victim. So one-time addresses can be helpful for police to investigate, but having multiple addresses can change the trace of cryptocurrency. And once the victim transfers the funds to this address, the hacker will transfer the funds to another address and then transfers to another address, and sometimes consolidating the funds with multiple victims. And in the next step, the police may then have to track the victim's funds through an obfuscated network of PL chains. Further consolidations required and multiple splits until they ultimately reach target tumblers, money exchangers, digital wallets, or crypto ATMs. And there are many tools that you can use. And Celebrite, which is a prominent company in investigating cryptography or cryptocurrencies, it's partnering with CipherTrace, which is a leader in blockchain analysis, and they both able to visualize complicated networks for investigators. So it's not easy to investigate these cryptocurrency traces without using tools. You need to get training and then be able to use the application or hardware or software to trace the fingerprints of the Bitcoin. And the goal of law enforcement is to find the exit point of the currency, where the currency moves to place to a place where the police can issue a subpoena or a court order. So the exit point is always the point where we want to reach out. And if law enforcement is lucky, they can identify a subject based on pictures obtained by the video surveillance, IP addresses, and know your customer information. And by analyzing and probing the KYC processes of over 800 virtual asset service providers in all 80 countries, cryptocurrency intelligence firm found actually 56% of these VASPs and which globally have demonstrably weak KYC practices. And you can reach out to their website to get some reports, industry specific reports from the website. And you can also reach out to the Celebrite's website to have more information how to trail digital money. And there are several challenges in dealing with dark web and cryptocurrency and money laundering, and lack of substantive law, and problem keeps getting evolving every time as the technology advances, and lack of procedural law not in place. Such procedural law are not in place, not very active in all other countries, and also interjurisdictional problems or issues are still a significant problem for the criminal justice community. And there are more challenges such as the forensic challenges and volume of and scope of cybercrimes, funding, lack of in-house expertise. There needs to be more well-trained officers to deal with these problems, and more specialized engineers are needed and dealing with such cybercrimes, and lack of national accreditation, and lack of funding and organizational commitment by police agencies. Also other types of problems that police always has to deal. Please feel free to reach out to me via email from the Blackboard or discussions. Thank you very much for listening this session. Thank you.